Oh, of course the wind picks up just as I'm about to start filming. Okay, well, yeah. Such is life, I suppose. Hey, I'm Gareth from Bokeh, and today we're taking a look at this, the brand new Sony 135mm f1.8 G Master lens, and whoa, this is a bokeh dream.
Standing in the doorway, I watched as you took off down Main. Felt something like the old days, running in place, so worry running away.
Okay, so 135mm is a great focal length for portraits. It's going to give you a nice bit of compression, especially here with this lens. You're going to get some lovely bokeh shooting wide open at f1.8. So I really wanted to try this lens out for portrait because it's just so perfect for it, but I also wanted to get a couple of different shots to really test out the image quality and the sharpness and things like that. Now this lens is sharp, it's super sharp. In fact, it might be one of the sharpest 135mm lenses I've ever used. And even shooting wide open at f1.8, it's still just so sharp. Shooting portraits, there's a lot of detail on the model's face, and that really contrasted nicely with the smooth bokeh behind. Now, something that surprised me was that this lens can focus at about 70cm, which is actually pretty close for a 135mm, and it means you can actually get in fairly close to your subjects depending on the kind of shot you're going for. Now, the overall image quality that you can get using this lens is lovely, and in terms of bokeh, which I know is something we all care about a lot, this lens is able to provide some seriously nice, creamy bokeh. Now, it's got 11 rounded aperture blades which really help to make the bokeh nice and smooth, and inside the lens it has XA lens technology which suppresses spherical aberrations, and ED and Super ED glass to suppress chromatic aberrations. The ultimate result of that is you get really lovely, smooth, clean bokeh. The circles that form in the middle of the image are nice and round, and towards the edges of the image you get a slightly swirly effect. Now personally, I love the look of this bokeh. It comes down a little bit down to personal preference, but for me, this looks great. Combined with the sharpness of the lens on the subject, you just get such great separation. The image is lovely. Now, of course, you could use 135mm to shoot a variety of things. I tried it a little bit for landscape. It works great for further away subjects or for getting that compression and using that in a creative way. And I even managed to try it out a little bit for video as well. It's probably a little bit longer than I would normally use for video, but with that bokeh, you can get some really nice looking shots. Now, there's no IS in the lens, but you've still got stabilization in the body if you're using something like the A7 III like I was. But for me, the lack of IS didn't really cause me any problems. There was a little bit of shake, which actually I was able to get rid of in post anyway. And to be fair, not having the IS in the lens does mean that Sony have been able to keep the lens at a decent size, but it's just worth being aware that the lens doesn't have IS. Now, speaking of the lens itself, as I mentioned, it is a decent size. It's still fairly big, but actually it's really not as heavy as I thought it would be. It actually sits quite nicely on the front of the A7 III, which is what I was using on the shoot, and it doesn't feel too front heavy. On top of that, it's still got some really nice features on the lens itself. There's an aperture ring, which I always think is nice. It's super easy to control the aperture that way. And on top of that, there's a D-clicker for us video people. Now, in addition to that, there are two customizable AF buttons on the lens, which let you do things like hold focus easily without ever having to move your eye from the viewfinder. Ultimately, this is probably one of the best 135mm lenses that I have ever used. The image quality is just superb, the bokeh's lovely, it's nice and sharp, and on top of that, it's actually pleasant to shoot with. It's big, but it never feels too bulky or heavy. I was able to quite comfortably handhold it through a whole shooting session with a model, and again doing a little bit of landscape as well. Now, if you have any questions about the lens at all, pop them down in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, as long as you want it. Don't feel pressured. I'd really appreciate it though. And of course, I'll see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching. Oh, it is windy. It's just loud. And there's no wind on me, you know? It's just loud. I've managed to isolate myself from the wind, pretty much. I think there's a couple of bits worse, but it's just loud in the trees. This storm is named Storm Gareth, so thank you for making this harder to record the audio. But, you know, what is life without wind? See ya.